ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So here we see Lord Kapila. He is describing the perfectional stage of Ashtanga Yoga, Samadhi. When one's mind is completely filled with love of God and he experiences extreme joy, ecstasy, standing of the hairs of his body as it is described in this verse. Previous to this, what was described was up to the point of meditation. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, dharana, dhyana. So up to the point of dhyana. So starting from yama, niyama up to dhyana, meditating on the form of the Lord in his mind is involved. But at this stage, the perfectional stage of yoga, mind is no more involved, no more required to capture the form of the Lord. Can somebody, if you have read the purport, two things Prabhupada is saying mind is required in the beginning stages. Nishkinchana. Yes. One is to purify the senses. Mind is required. Another is to meditate on the form of the Lord. Mind is required. At this stage, one is not very attracted to the Supreme Lord. He is not very attracted to the form of the Lord. Just like in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna says, wherever the mind goes, the yogi should withdraw the mind from there and bring it back to meditate on the form of the Lord. Krishna also explains that in Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter. So, these two stages in Ashtanga Yoga are called as Yoga Rurukshu and Yoga Rudha. In the 6th chapter, 3rd verse and 4th verse describes the beginning stage and the perfectional stage. Yoga Rurukshu means the beginning stage. It is also called as Nirjiva Yoga, no life, no attraction, It is lifeless yoga. And when his spontaneous attraction has developed and the mind is not required forcibly to keep the form of the Lord in the mind, because love is there, automatically one will think about the Supreme Lord. You don't have to meditate and contemplate. Just like the gopis, they did not have to meditate or think about the form of the Lord. Automatically, out of pure love, 24 hours they were able to think of the Supreme Lord. Isn't it? Otherwise it is not possible. Can you think of somebody 24 hours without love? Is it possible? It becomes a great austerity. So either you can think of somebody 24 hours out of love or out of enviousness. That is also possible. Kamsa, he was also thinking of God 24 hours. It is said, lying down, walking, eating, sleeping, practically, he was only Krishna conscious, but out of enviousness of Krishna. Gopis were also Krishna conscious, but out of love for Krishna. One is called bhakti and another one is not bhakti, because it is pratikula. Bhakti is defined as anukula. Favorably one has to think of the Supreme Lord, not envious like Kamsa. So, mind, when it is required to purify the senses and to hold on to the form of the Lord, it is called yoga rurukshu or nirjiva yoga. There is no life in this. Life is when, there is attraction, when there are emotions, bhava, when there is prema, then it is called life. When somebody is forced somehow or other, just like few days back, somebody was calling on the phone and I was just hearing. He was talking in Kannada and he was telling that I am not at all interested in engineering. Not at all. Somehow my parents have put, I am just studying. Otherwise my soul is not there, my mind is not there at all. Nirjiva. When you put your consciousness, that is called life. And when you are doing simply out of force, obligation, it is no more, it is lifeless. Isn't it? So, let us see how beautifully Krishna describes these two parts of yoga. Yoga rurukshu and yoga arudha. So, this is in the 6th chapter, 3rd verse. For one who is neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who has already attained to yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Now we should understand it properly. What does it mean? For one who is neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, arurkshor munayor yogam karma karanam uchyate. Karma karanam means. For him to advance further, What is the means? Karma. He should be working. He cannot give up his work. He should not give up his work. One will be surprised how it is possible. Krishna is telling one can become a yogi while working also. Krishna is telling to Arjuna, Tasmat yogi bhava Arjuna. Krishna will tell in this chapter. Therefore, because yogi is greater than jnani, empiric philosopher, and greater than karmi also, so always remain a yogi, Krishna is telling. So one may wonder how it is possible. Arjuna is a fighter, and in the end Krishna will explain, do not worry, you are the greatest of the yogis. Yoginam api sarvesham madagata antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukto tamo mataha. You are the greatest yogi, most intimately connected yogi out of all the yogis. You see. So, Krishna explains that Mam Smarena Yudhyacha. You remember me also and you do your duty also. So, Krishna is not asking Arjuna to give up his work. So, this is very important in the beginning stages of yoga. All devotees in Krishna consciousness are advised by Srila Prabhupada to be engaged 24-hour practically in devotional service. Prabhupada used to criticize those devotees who would try to imitate Haridas Thakur. You see, that is a very high stage. What is that stage? There is no work involved. Because one has become free from the body. Where is the question of working for the body? At our stage, we have to work. We cannot imitate those personalities. Is it possible? You will sleep only for 1 hour, 2 hours? Anybody can do? Haridas Thakur would sleep hardly for 2 to 3 hours. Prabhupada also, we find, hardly he would sleep for 2 to 3 hours. Practically, just like when that Vaishya came to test Haridas Thakur, we find Haridas Thakur did not even sleep. Constantly chanting, my rounds are not yet over, not yet finished, and then next day rounds he is chanting. Not even eating and sleeping. So where is it possible? That is yoga rudha, perfectional stage of yoga, where person has become completely free from all sense enjoyment. So he does not require his mind, his senses to work for the body. His mind has become spontaneously attached to the Lord. So for us it is not possible. For all the neophytes, and everybody is a neophyte, we should not think I have become very advanced. Work is very essential. Sometimes we find devotees are hardly 1 hour, 2 hours they work. Actually, it should be opposite. If required, hardly we should sleep for 1 or 2 hours. And sometimes we find practically the devotees are not engaged in work. The result of that will be idle brain, is devil's workshop. If the mind is not engaged in serving the Lord, it will be only finding faults with the devotees. If somebody is very competent in finding fault, you should understand he is simply idly sitting. He has no other work. Very dangerous position. Otherwise, actually, so many works are there in Krishna consciousness. So many works are there. Where is the question of, spacing out, not doing work? The spiritual master, one of the very essential duty of the spiritual master is to engage the devotees in devotional service. Varieties of different kinds of works are there in Krishna consciousness. And all of them, when they are related to the Supreme Lord, it is no more an ordinary work. It is no more an ordinary work. That work will purify because it is in relation with the Lord. It will purify our instruments, our senses, our mind, which we are engaging, and our consciousness. So this is what Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita. In the next verse, again Krishna says, person is said to have attained to yoga arudha, when having renounced all material desires. So this is a stage when one does not need to work. We should introspect. Have I come to this stage that I can just sit down, chant holy name and I can be just happy? I don't require anything else. No, I don't require to engage my mind. If we don't engage our mind in constructive activities of Krishna consciousness, our mind will be engaged in destructive activities. It's a fact. So, Krishna is saying, person is said to have attained to yoga when having renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So for him it is not required because for what he has to act? He is no more inclined towards sense enjoyment and he does not have to perform any fruitive activities. His mind is completely absorbed in the Supreme Lord. So for him it is not required. He has come to that stage. So just like here we find yoga rurukshu and yoga rudha. The parallel of that in devotional service is sadhana and raganuga. So in sadhana stage, one has to be very, very hard working. 24 hours our mind and senses should be engaged. Then it is possible we will be able to purify our senses. I was reading in 4th Canto about the life of Maharaj Dhruva. Prabhupada says something very important one can learn from the life of Maharaj Dhruva. He says three things should be learned. One, he says, from the life of Maharaj Dhruva, one can learn how to become detached from sense enjoyment. How one can become detached from sense gratification. Second thing Prabhupada says, one can learn is how to enhance in devotional service with determination, performing severe austerities and penances. You see, This is another thing one has to learn. So determined. 6 months he was able to see the Lord face to face. So severe austerities he performed. So nothing is possible without determination. So this is another thing we have to learn. Third thing Prabhupada says, when we hear about the story, the life of Maharaj Dhruva, one can become immediately connected to the Supreme Lord, and he transcends the 3 modes of material nature and comes to spiritual platform. So, it is not an ordinary story. So, this is what here also we can find. Lord Kapila is very nicely describing about. Now he is describing about the perfectional stage. Up to this point, we found, just like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also described, one has to go to a secluded place, then one has to control his mind and his senses, withdraw the mind and senses from external objects. Slowly, when his mind has become completely fixed, it is no more deviating. That time, with that concentration, he has to fix his mind on the authorized form of the Lord, which can be created in his mind. Yogi is supposed to create the form of the Lord in the mind. Just like in devotional service, an Acharya, he invites the Lord to descend in Archa Vigraha. So that is also one of the forms, just like we see in the temple. The deities in the temple are called Archa Vigraha. So the devotees, they fix their mind on Archa Vigraha, whereas a yogi, he has to fix his mind in his heart, in the form made with his mind, but not imaginary form. That form should be authorized form of the Lord. And then he has to start meditating, beginning from the lotus feet of the Lord. And what he should think when he is meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord, what should be his consciousness? All those things we find Lord Kapila has already described. So in this verse, today he is saying, by following this course, whatever has been described earlier, start meditating on the lotus feet, then on the navel of the Lord, then on the chest of the Lord, then on the different, abhushanas the Lord is wearing, then on the neck of the Lord, then on the smile of the Lord, isn't it? All these different aspects were very beautifully described by Lord Kapila. So when he does it for a long time, in the course of time, it is said, yogi gradually develops pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. Similarly, in devotional service, gradually following the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti, one will attain and come to this stage of raganuga bhakti. Just like the yogi has to fix his mind on the form of the Lord and purify his senses with the mind, that time mind is very essential, senses are very essential. You cannot neglect. Similarly, in sadhana bhakti time, we have to be very conscious of utilizing forcefully our mind and senses in the service of the Lord. Somehow or other, yena kena prakarena manah Krishna nivasyet. Somehow or other, fix your mind on Krishna. That is called sadhana bhakti. So we are not in a position, we do not know how to do. But the Acharya, he is in a position, he knows how the devotee's mind, his senses can be fixed in Krishna somehow or other. So that is how we find Srila Prabhupada very mercifully has given all the different angas of our sadhana and varieties of services in Krishna consciousness. So we have to immerse ourselves. We have to immerse ourselves. If we don't immerse ourselves in service of the Lord, then Maya will immerse our consciousness in material services. Maya will only spare if we don't give any space to Maya. If we fill our time, whatever time and energy we have got, very carefully in the service of the Lord, then it is possible. Otherwise it is very difficult. So, this is a very interesting point which Prabhupada is mentioning. I'll just read it again. Here it is clearly mentioned, meditation, which is action of the mind, is not perfect stage of samadhi or absorption. So dhyana is not the final. Till now, Lord Kapila has been describing dhyana, meditating. Just like we also meditate, we come near the deities and we meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. We meditate on the smiling face of the Lord. That is required, but that is not the perfectional stage. Perfectional stage will be when you become accustomed, habituated. These are the words Prabhupada is using. What does it mean? Spontaneously means accustomed. You go anywhere, you can only think of Krishna. You do anything, any work for the Lord, you are only thinking of Krishna. You will be habituated, you will be accustomed to think only of Krishna. So that is not attained immediately. You have to go through this process. So much hope is there. Today we may be thinking, Prabhu, very difficult. One day I come for Mangalarti, another day back pain, this problem, that problem. Somehow dragging myself, getting up. Why? No attraction. Immediately if attraction is there, you can imagine how much you will be. I remember in my college days, I was mad after cricket, practically. And I would not leave. There used to be day and night matches. My parents were fed up. This fellow, 12 o'clock night, he is watching the match till 4 o'clock morning when Mangalarti is there. Why? Attraction. Isn't it? And if there is no attraction, you have to force your mind somehow or other. So you have to think that yes, one day it is possible, very much possible. Now we are in sadhana stage, yoga ruruksha, neophyte stage. So attraction is not there, it is lifeless, isn't it? And that is how we find devotees are depressed and not happy in their life, and then they think, better some material service I will do, and okay, I'll chant a little. That also I will do. Only doing devotional service, my mind is not. This is because no attraction. Nirjiva yoga we are practicing practically. But if we somehow or other put our conscious efforts, God helps those who help themselves. This is very important. If we put our conscious effort that yes, from time immemorial, mind is covered with so much of anarthas, we have no attraction for Krishna. But if I take it like a medicine, somehow or other, bhav oshadha, chotro manobhirama, then if I somehow or other take it like a medicine, when my disease will be over, it will be very pleasing to the mind. very pleasing to the heart. You see. So, the test is, if you are feeling lazy, somehow or other you want to bunk the program, just like in the colleges you will find students not interested in study, somehow or other they are going, 75 or 60% attendance is needed, only for that they will go. Otherwise not interested. Isn't it? So that is called nirjiva, no life. But in the beginning stage, if you put lot of effort in that direction, then you will find gradually the mind, senses will be purified. Why no attraction? Senses are dirty, mind is dirty with anartha. And if you are not taking medicine, how it will become purified? It will not be purified. Somehow or other, forcefully, without force, somehow or other you have to get up, come and participate in the program Srila Prabhupada has so kindly given. Then you will find you develop attraction for it. Then you will find if you miss it, you will feel hellish. You will feel, why did I simply sleep on the bed for so long? I was simply lying on the bed. So much time I have wasted. Isn't it? Then you will feel that. Then it becomes Sajiva Yoga. Otherwise it will remain. Number of years does not matter. 10 years, 20 years also it will be Nirjiv if you don't put conscious effort in that direction. If you don't pray to the Lord. Isn't it? So that is very, very important. So, Prabhupada is saying, in the higher stages, no question of using the mind. Devotee becomes accustomed to serving the Supreme Lord by purification of his senses. In other words, yoga principle of meditation are required as long as one is not situated in pure devotional service. Mind is used to purify the senses, but when the senses are purified by meditation, there is no need to sit in a particular place, because no need that you have to sit and remember the Lord. Anywhere, whatever you will be doing for Krishna, you will be able to remember the Lord. That is what the meaning of accustomed, habituated to think. How it will be? Because you have attended the program like that. You have trained your mind in that direction. That is the meaning of that. So one becomes so habituated, automatically engages in the personal service of the Lord. When the mind forcibly is engaged upon the form, it is called Nirbija Yoga, lifeless yoga. For the yogi does not automatically engage in personal service of the Lord. But when he is constantly thinking of the Lord, that is called Sabija Yoga. One has to be promoted to that platform of living yoga. So we'll stop with this Granth Raj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.